Good morning. Cardiologist here. Today I'd like to show everybody how to do a brake job on a Mercedes-Benz E350 4matic 2010. One would think that this would not be a particularly complicated thing to do, but when I looked at the Mercedes-Benz WIS system and I looked at the pictures that were present, what I realized is that the pictures that are shown in the manual do not apply to this car. I'm pretty sure that this car comes with 3 different types of brakes depending on the packages that one gets. The E350 has a gas engine, it has a 4matic, there's a station wagon, there's a coupe, there's a convertible, there's lots of possible iterations. So this is a 2010 W12 4matic. And again, I had difficulty finding pictures that would really show me what to do. I even went online to YouTube and I couldn't see anything. So I thought this would be a very good cardiology video to go ahead and show how we can replace the brakes on this Mercedes. So it looks like, even though there's multiple options for brakes on this car, the most common option appears to be the slotted, cross-drilled brake rotors. That probably is what you're going to see most of the time. If you open up the Mercedes WIS, you'll see nice pictures of that. I think that's going to come on the gas engine, that's going to come on any car where you get the sport package, and I have a feeling most people outfitted their cars that way. But for the 4matic and for a more stripped down Mercedes, they're going to come with the more standard brake discs. These brakes have 60,000 miles on them. I was doing the general service on this car for a family member, and on inspection of the brakes, even though the light hadn't yet gone off, I realized that the pads were way down, and I also saw that the rotors were down, so I thought it was going to be time. Now this is a car which has seen ice and snow, and I think you can see over here that there's going to be some rust and some crud. So to make a long story short, I really had a certain amount of difficulty figuring out exactly how to get these brakes off and how to do this job properly due to the lack of any real documentation. Now, of course, those people who are professional mechanics and who do these things, well, obviously they know what they're doing, but to us do-it-yourselfers, it's always helpful if somebody has put something out there. So I guess this is a good time to give a disclaimer. I know that it should go without saying that if you choose on your own to work on a car and you're not exactly a professional, you're running some risks. You could hurt yourself, you could break something, you could wind up making several expensive mistakes. I think that that's obvious. I think that's implicit in the project. So I'm simply showing you what I did, but not in any way suggesting that you do it, nor am I warranting anything. I'm just sharing with the YouTube community my own personal experiences, and you can either share in my successes or share in my failures. Hopefully you'll share in my successes. So let me begin, and let's go through what I have learned from doing the other side, and let's get this done nicely. I want to give credit where credit is due. The whole idea for doing videos like this really came from Kent Bergsma, that terrific gentleman out in Bellingham, Washington, who does great videos. I've learned a lot from him, and believe me, I'm not trying to hone in on his territory. I make no money off of anything here. I'm just a guy who's sharing my experiences, but he's really been an inspiration. Does a great job. So the first thing we're going to do is take this spring. We see this spring, tension here, it's hooked in over here. I'm going to use a standard screwdriver and pull this off, hopefully without killing myself because I'm holding the camera at the same time, which is probably not particularly smart, but Let's see what we can do. If I can't get it off this way, yeah, I'm going to do it more safely with the camera off, and then I'll show you what I've done. Okay, spring off. We'll put that aside. The spring does get reused. Alright, so one of my big issues was trying to figure out which bolts to get off. There's 4 of these guys which take a triple square 12 millimeter. They should not be touched. They hold the caliper together. Do not touch them. You don't need to touch them. What you need to touch is this, which is a 13 millimeter head, and this one down here. So only these 2 need to be taken off. They're torqued to 25 Newton meters. I'm going to take them off. Okay, so after you've taken these off, out comes that bolt, out comes this bolt. Now, the sockets that they're put into, if you want to call them sockets, these things, they need to be pulled out, because that's going to wind up attaching this caliper to the support bracket. Okay, the next step is to take a screwdriver, fit it in between this part, which remains on the car, and this part, the caliper, which is going to come off. Come like this, and just pry a little bit, and you'll start to see it moving outward. And in that manner, we're going to gently get this caliper out. Once it's out, you want to catch it so that it doesn't hang from the wires and hoses. So I will have to turn off the camera for this. Okay, so after a little bit of prying and loosening, this comes off. I will now support it so it doesn't hang from the wires, and we'll continue. Okay, so I have this resting now on top of the unit, and you can see that on the Mercedes only the right side has the sensor. That's on the new W12. On the W211, which is one of my cars, they have sensors on both sides. So I have new sensors and all of that. I'm going to leave this up here right now. The next thing I want to do is get this half, this bracket, off of the car. This needs to come off in order to take off the rotor. And please keep in mind that Mercedes designs these brakes so that the pads and the rotors wear down together and need to be replaced together. Mercedes rotors really shouldn't be resurfaced. Now, I don't know that this is going to project properly, but as I run my finger, it's smooth, 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 and there's a big lip right here. And that's how much it's worn down, and it's really it's probably a good few millimeters. Maybe, yeah, 1 to 2 millimeters. Anyway, that just shows that it's done. So I'm going to remove this bracket. We're also going to remove this screw. This screw is torqued to 10 Newton meters. And then the disc should come out. Alright, so we're going to take off these 2 bolts. This one, 18 millimeters, and this one, 18 millimeters. That'll take off that carrier bracket. These are torqued really tightly, so we'll have to work on those. Alright, got that screw out, got this screw out. It was not easy. Really wasn't. It's a big screw too. Big, big bolt. Okay, so now this comes off. There we go. That's off. And we have this bolt and we have this bolt with it. Okay, so now, at least in theory, the rotor should come off. This has to be removed. This is with a Torx head. And because of all the rust and the fact that nobody used anti-seize on this, I'm going to have to clean it all off, maybe even put some penetrating oil, and it may be difficult for this disc to come off. This is a T30. This is down to 10 Newton meters. Really working with one hand is a bad plan, but we got it off. All right. So I'm going to start by just taking it all the way off, and then I'll see if I'm lucky enough that this rotor will pull. If it just pulls, I'll be lucky. If it doesn't pull and it needs work, I'm going to put this back on halfway and start getting more aggressive with the rotor. Okay, so because this has been on a very long time, and the previous people who took things on and off did not use anti-seize, that rotor is on. A few things you can do. You can hit at it with a hammer. Yeah, that'll sort of work. I have a somewhat more elegant solution, which I'm going to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is get the screw, and we're going to put this screw back in halfway. That way, when it finally pops, it's not just going to go flying off and hit me. The next thing I'm going to do is take these two bolts, which I just have in my general collection, and I'm going to insert them through the back, the part that's still on the car, and I'll get behind there and show you, and then we'll tighten these down so that it actually push out the rotors. Alright, so look, put this screw here. I'm going to put washers and nuts here. Same thing up here, and then I'll show you. Okay, so now I have the bolts in place, like this. I'll put a wrench here. I'll put a socket here. We tighten up the top, we tighten up the bottom, and then the thing is going to hopefully pop off. Alright, so I did that, and then I heard a big pop, meaning that it came off, so I'll take out these bolts, and then I think the unit is going to come right out. Okay, take out the bolt, save that. Okay, put on my gloves. And I'm going to need to pull with two hands, but I think it's going to come now. Okay, that got it. So now that's off, and you can see underneath here it's kind of dirty. I'm going to brush all this off, then I'll use a Scotch-Brite pad, and then I'm going to give it a good coat of anti-seize before we start rebuilding it again. Okay, so I used a wire brush over here, and then I used a Scotch-Brite pad and some brake parts cleaner and made it all clean. Now I have some anti-seize. We're going to use a little anti-seize, and I'm going to liberally spread this all around. This little step of anti-seize is so important because it's insurance. The next time I have to do this, or someone else has to do this, it'll pop right off. They're not going to have to do that trick with the bolts and beat it with a hammer and all of that. Time to put on the new disc. Got my new rotor. Okay, nice new rotor. These things come with a paint. This shouldn't be removed. This stuff will actually just wear in. It's meant to be that way. I usually clean it up to make sure there's no oils and greases, but don't take off the paint. This is where we're going to have to line up with this. I'll put the rotor on now. Okay, well, I like to clean off the parts before I put them back in. I'm just a little compulsive that way. So I used a little bit of degreaser, got the majority of the crap off. Let's put this back on. This is the carrier that the caliper will then get bolted to. Okay, so to do this, we reuse these 18mm bolts, 1 and 2. These are very tight. We'll torque, well, I don't have a torque spec. We'll make them GNT, good and tight. Okay, so we have the rotor on, we have the carrier bracket on, and then of course this is our caliper sitting up here. Only on the right side on the W212 do we have the sensor that goes into one of the pads. So now I'm going to carefully start working on the rotor. Step number one is that you make sure your brake fluid reservoir is open, so that as I push back, the fluid will go back in. So we're going to kind of turn this upside down. Now, there's two pads. This first pad is stuck in. I'm going to use a screwdriver to pop this pad out, and then I'm going to use one of those bolts to push the piston, caliper piston, back into place. Okay, the front brake pad is out, and that leaves this hole. So I'm going to put that same bolt right through the hole and then use it on the used brake pad to push back the caliper piston. Okay, so now I can just support the nut here. I can take a 14mm driver and just do this to push that back in. So we just do this slowly, and you'll see that it's quite successful in pushing the caliper back in. Alright, I'll finish this up offline and then continue. Alright, this is all the way back in. Loosen up and remove the bolt, and then press on. Okay, that part's done. Now take out this brake pad, and that is garbage, and of course it has the sensor in there, and we'll be right there. Alright, let's show you the new pads compared to the identical old pads. These are the one for the front, and this is its partner. So you can see on edge there's the new one, and on edge there's the old one. So yeah, that's kind of messed up. I also have a new sensor. We'll insert that. The new sensor goes right into this hole. Alright, new brake pad put into the caliper. Sensors here through the hole out the other side. Now we'll put in the front one that gets stuck on. Okay, we got the pads on. Now all I need to do is flip the thing upside down and put it back on the car, which is what I will now do. Okay, so that worked well. So now I take the two new screws from the pad set, put these in at 25 Newton meters, and that'll wrap up the front brakes. Okay, so this is all done. I went ahead and made sure that the sensor was hooked up. I torqued everything down properly. It looks very good. I'll come up here and close off the brake fluid, and looking here, it's now back up to maximum, so that's good. Looks like we did a good job on that, and that should do it. So I wish you the best of luck trying it on your brakes, and of course don't forget to put the spring back on.
Bye.
Bye.